Greetings, all. I would say grand rising. It's pretty early here where I'm at. Really, really early. I think I mentioned I've been waking up early. I sleep good. I go to sleep early, and I sleep very well. But I find myself waking up early as well and just having energy for the whole day. It's interesting. But I want to talk about the price that we have to pay for hate. And so for those of us who have any type of business mind or business dealing where, we know a little bit more about the inner workings of an organization and how it's ran and the monetary side of things, I question if we really can afford the hate. So the allegory that I'm going to give is this, or analogy I'm going to give is what we experience in society as a people and why it benefits the rest of society to have basically a fall guy, i.e. it being the quote unquote black race or those of us of darker hue, throughout the world. Why the need to pretty much target a particular group of people and the role that status and classism plays, in and why these things are taking place in the first place, and why and how, it's causing an advantage and a disadvantage, and you can't have one without the other. The polar opposites of society, and how you have those who benefit from the side that tends to reap all the benefits, the advantages, the privileges of those deemed not worth the privileges and the advantages. And can we really afford this hate? Because it is by choice. We know that there is a certain amount of indoctrination that's taken place in our experience thus far. You come into this world of hate. I've mentioned that before in a previous video. Being born into hate, not just sin, but hate. Because when you look into even sin itself, sin is not about something that's going against God. It's really about something going against yourself. And so in that regard, sin and hate are really the same thing. But you're really dealing with self-hate and being taught to self-hate through tricknology. The various spells that are cast that promote intentionally or initially. I guess I'm not woke fully, but bear with me, guys. I'm going somewhere with this. Initially, the hate has to start within, at home, at your foundation, the base. And though a child doesn't come in hating themselves due to generational curses and the objective of the business plan of keeping particular people in a certain position, there's always this correlation, and what the capitalists have recognized is that, I'm not going to say they recognize it, because I know that, when they talk about anything being possible, that's true. Anything is possible. And so there's a way to have a capitalistic society without using hate to do it. But when you're dealing with a system that's ran by those who have always doubted who they were, their existence, and not really knowing who they are and all that type of stuff, it you know, it can cause a certain amount of self-hate, you know, like for people who, you know, you guys, you might hear my fan and all that type of stuff going on. But anyway, and I'll probably end up turning this heat back on. I go back and forth. You know, I'm a woman getting older. Excuse me. And I need to clear out my system. But anyway, and so, but when you're dealing with those who are the producers of the system, and, you know, going back generations and generations, you're dealing with people who have always kind of like been raised in the jungle, you know, not really truly having that connection to the wisdom and the true love and authenticness of the family unit, and the, you know, the connection between parent and child, the proper one. You know, all not knowing where they come from, not knowing, you know, just like if you're adopted, or, you know, you don't know your parents, you know, you have a lot of people who suffer from a lot of inner battles due to these things. You know, I didn't really know my mom that well. I definitely didn't know my dad that well, but it's just never been I never had any turmoil within myself about that situation, you know, but I know a lot of people do, you know. And with that being said, this is actually a consistent pattern of those who have laid the blueprint for society. And within the blueprint, you know, you're talking about business plans. You're talking about the makeup of the inner workings of something. You know, when you have a business plan, you know, you got your mission statement. You got all these various things, you know, like your projection, and you have to stick to this blueprint called a business plan in order to fulfill what your objective is. So, you know, when you want to increase your sales, you want to increase your profits, you know, and so you have to say, you know, by this year, this is what I look to accomplish, and then you go deeper into the analytical part of the structure of the business plan, and you literally break down. So you say, okay, well, this is how much I want to make by this year, and then you break down how you're going to do it. You know, are you gonna cut back on some things in order to be able to increase, you know, your profit in other areas? Are you going to add to some things in order to, you know what I'm saying? Are you going to use inflation techniques, skip nation techniques? You know, it's different types of nation techniques you can use in order to gain more profit, you know. And so there's this blueprint within this country, you know, really in this world, where they have these projections. And so once they implement certain parts of the business plan and they recognize that it works, then that's what they go with, you know. So it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's not a matter of, yeah, we can accomplish this in a different way. It's a matter of, the blueprint has already been laid from these particular spirits, and this is the direction that they're going to continue into. And so and with that being said, they have the spirit of advantage and disadvantage. That's the spirit, that's the capitalistic spirit that exists. And not just that, it's those that are in the disadvantaged group, the ones that are supposed to have the least, that's going to obtain enough in order to give to those who have the advantage to keep them in that position. That's a strange little dynamics there, you know, because how can you take something from nothing? You know what I'm saying? But they master the art of that, you know, just even through their fractional banking. And so, and when you look at those in society that are just by default seen as the disadvantaged. And what has to take place on a mental and spiritual level in order to make sure that they remain in that position has a lot to do with teaching hate, that self-hate, that a generational self-hate, and so now remember, those who are behind the introduction of this way of being, they already had that spirit. They already have the spirit of hate. They already had the spirit of not knowing where they come from, so on and so forth. So this is why it was so easy for them to take that and project it onto another group of people who are really the originators of the earth itself. But that's what a narcissist does. And so when you look into how narcissists operate, that's what they do. They project whatever they are and whatever they do, they project it on others. And so now we are at a point in our existence as a people, in particular in this country, where we don't know where we come from. We don't know our real story. People are at odds about, are we black? Are we colored? Are we African American? Are we FDA? Are we, you know what I'm saying? Like, what, who are we? What are we? So they have switched places with us. And when it's all said and done, they really don't really know their origins. They've been able to make up the narrative due on the spoils of war. But outside of that, they really truly don't know who they are when they get into the nitty gritty of what's going on here. Okay. And so the self-hate, how the self-hate, and see, this is what people, the indoctrination, what it does is it depletes a person of their critical thinking skills, i.e. this ability to discern. And so people can't see how one thing is connected to the other thing. They can't do the math on that. I have conversations with people all the time, and they just cannot see how this one particular thing has anything to do with something else, but it's all relative, right? And so you see self-hate. How can self-hate promote financial gain for other people? You think about that. And so if you're living in a society that's through the ages, through time, through generations and generations, they have told people and made people feel less than, made people feel unwelcome to the point where you were so unwelcome that you couldn't have access to what others had access to. And so that thirst and that desires that develops and grows over time, that causes people to malfunction, to cause people to act other than themselves out of the need, in some cases, to just survive. Hold on, guys. And how this hate leads to a serious price to pay. Because we know that people that are poor have to spend more money. Now, that doesn't seem to make sense, logically speaking. But due to the system itself not being logical, it all makes sense. And so that as a person with poor credit, you're not going to get the same deal as someone who has good credit if you go in to purchase anything that requires a loan. That as a poor person who can only shop in areas that are close to them due to the fact that maybe they don't have a vehicle, or maybe the public transportation is limited, or due to the fact that they don't have really the money to go out, to take the gas, to use the gas to go out further. And then there's the other components of even going out further than where you live at. Are you going to be welcomed out there? Are you accepted out there? And so it's all these components that are adding to how you feel about yourself, right? And so now you're left to only having access to that which is around you. And so, and with that even being said, that which is around you that can provide various items and products to you, in some cases, especially, when we own more of these establishments, they weren't getting the same deals as their counterparts in the business world. And so therefore you were paying more than someone else will be paying in a different place, in a different demographics within the city itself. And so the price that you pay for hate, first starting with the hate that one has for themselves. And you can tell when a person has hate for themselves by how they treat others, and particularly how they treat others that's like them, that's similar to them. In particular, how they treat others that are like them in front of others, especially those who aren't like them. And so what I'm saying is I'm drawing the correlation between how these disadvantages plays a role on our psyche, and also how once we become compromised in our psyche and we start to display this self-mutilating spirit, and not just the self within us, but the self with anyone that looks like us, where we go from not just beating ourselves up in the privacy of our own homes, or not just, you have people who cut themselves, who do all these self-mutilating things to themselves. But when you see yourself as an extension outside of your home, in the sense of those that look like you in your community, it's easy for you to continue your self-mutilation by, black on black crime, black on black murder, black on black disrespect, just because, what I'm saying? Because you get to the point where people just disrespect you. We just disrespect one another just because, or it's a matter of, at least I'm better than you. And even though it's a perception, because it's all a perception, how someone feels superior to anything else, any living thing, is a perception. It's only a perception. Even if one is has overtook something else, it's still a perception. And so, but the cycle or the mental effect that it has on the subconscious, because what people don't understand is most people operate automatically, and then the more that you fall away from that which still had the critical thinking skill within your group, or the wisdom, or the discernment, the more and more you're separated from that as time goes on, because more and more people, the norm changes. Basically, the norm of having the wisdom of what your people went through and who was responsible for it and why you shouldn't partake in this and that starts to deplenish, creating a whole different norm, a different type of people. And so the self-hate continually grows, because you no longer have anyone telling you about your greatness, about, really who you really are, and where you really come from, and what we really have done, our accomplishments and all that. And now you're given a new narrative that further takes away from your self-importance, your connection to anything, your relevance. And the price of to pay for that in society, is it worth it? It would be great if we all would start looking at our experience from a more business point of view, because that's what America is. It's all about commerce. And if we looked at ourselves in that light as how they look at us in numbers, maybe we would have a better experience, because because of the indoctrination, the money thing is become priority. But see, with those who benefit the most off of this society, they don't just look at numbers and money. They look at numbers and everything, people, everything. They're always focused and concerned about the numbers, not just the money aspect, because everything else is a means to an end of the money aspect. And so if we understood the numbers, the power and unity, so on and so forth, and not even looked at it in a personal way. I mean, because in the end, it's always going to be a personal way anyway. But the price that we pay in going along with the division and the narrative that's been given, that's caused the division. It's kind of like, again, I'm gonna give an analogy. When those on the outside see how you operate, and when they see that you don't have a unity that involves looking out for each other, it makes it easy for them to come in and take advantage of each individual person. Because see, when a person looks and realizes that someone doesn't have any shelter, any support, anything protecting them, anyone concerned about them, that person is more than likely going to take advantage. We live in a very opportunistic society. That's what capitalism is. It's about taking the opportunity. It's kind of like, you got people who are in nursing homes. You got people that are in hospitals. Basically, you have people who are in positions where they're relying on others to take care of them, on an institutional level. And so if there's a patient that doesn't have anyone that comes to see them versus a patient whose families are always involved and are always there, there's going to be a different type of experience. They're going to give a different type of treatment to the person that does not have anyone to oversee their concerns. And you know what I'm saying? It's just an automatic thing, unless you just get authentic people around. But again, we're talking about how society has slowly but surely moved into a different type of a norm when it comes to the mentality of people. And people don't naturally have that same consideration for one another that they used to have back in the day. And so the liability of not having unity in this day and age can be detrimental. It can be detrimental, and so, when you think about Malcolm X, when he made that comment, even about the black woman being the least protected being on the planet. And we're talking about agendas here. And so with the black woman being the least protected, when something is not protected, that means it is the most attacked. It is the most attacked. And so when you're always under attack in the jungle, you're going to develop a certain mindset and a certain way of thinking in order to survive. And so the world not only puts you in a vulnerable position, but then places the guilt on you for your survival skills, for what you had to do in order to survive. And this is the game that perpetually is taking place in order for the blueprints to be played out for the fulfillment for this capitalistic system. And so not only is a part of the surviving of that is that which is the least protected, coming from just a physical aspect, it's a financial aspect. You know, there's a reason why black women are always overdone in their beauty, because we all know that there's a thing called pretty privilege. There's a reason why you have black people bleaching their skin, because there's a such thing as skin privilege. And so when we can start stepping back and looking at what's causing all this strange behavior in individuals, where people are acting other than themselves, i.e. not comfortable wearing their own hair. And so the question becomes, is it that they don't like their hair, or their hair is just not accepted, or have the lines been blurred? And so this whole mentality, and so the capitalistic mentality sees how the black woman is the least protected, because they put them in that position, and they don't want to be seen as the ones that are responsible for it, even though they are. So what they do is they create a fake opposition, it being the black man. Just like even in the whole gay agenda, and this whole situation with the violation of little boys, just children really in general, in the Catholic Church. But there seemed to be a campaign to violate little boys, because that was the agenda. And so then, not just that aspect of going in and producing a new norm within the sexes, they also attacked the youth through or attack us through bio weaponry, through the foods. I mean, because there are certain foods that you can eat that will raise the testosterone level in a man, even in a woman. There are certain foods that will raise the estrogen level in people. And if there are certain foods that can do this, the lack of those foods will deplete it. Or not to mention these chemicals that cause blockages. And so they know that a part of their blueprint is they're doing this purposely. But they have to come along to give you an opposition, so they can point the finger in a different direction than where it's really coming from. So they say, okay, now we have this whole gay agenda, and now it's gay people versus everyone else, when all these things are artificially produced by something diabolical that's taking place behind the scenes, and acting like they don't exist, and giving you something to come up against and oppose and point the finger at, as though something else is the problem. And the price we pay for the hate. And so when you look at the self-hate that's taking place in our community, and how we are not having each other's backs. And not only are we not having each other's backs, we play a role in the destruction of one another, the self-mutilating. This is why you can't take advantage. This is why we begin to get taken advantage of. We are being taken advantage of. It's the division. There's a reason why communities have changed throughout the years. It's the blueprint. There's a reason why. Remember when everyone pretty much knew each other in the neighborhood? You knew the owner of the shops. You knew the owner of beauty shops, the barber shops, the grocery stores. It didn't matter what color they were or whatever. But because you were vested into that area, there was a certain amount of quote unquote pride, a need to keep crime out the area, a need to uphold the community, the neighborhood, it was a need to do it because you were vested into it. that's one of the reasons why people started moving. They started presenting a different agenda where businesses, neighborhood businesses start closing. People start becoming more transient. You got people who move every year, people who move every so many months, people who move so many years, and they're not as vested into the community. Therefore, on a political scale, they can come in and pretty much kind of have their way, because that unity and that support no longer exists. When they talk about divide and conquer, the price that you pay for the hate and not having a love for self, for your environment, for your neighborhood, for your neighbors. This is what all the hate is, and how the hate leads to the benefit of capitalism. And so we have all these issues with one another. And, you know, even when I look at my situation and how, like, for instance, if I'm being met with some type of issue with technology, what I've noticed throughout the years is I may have an issue with something going on with my technology. But every time I present it to someone else, somehow the issue becomes rectified. Because why? Because you have witnesses now. You have, i.e., support around you. So this is the reason why, even as targeted individuals, they present they put you in a situation to isolate you so they can have their way with you. So no one else is witnessing what they're doing to you. So you can't, whenever you go somewhere, and every time you go somewhere, you keep hearing the same song. No one's around you to collaborate with that, or to agree with that. Like, wow, yeah, I do notice that. Now, I have been in situations where I've been able to show people certain things because they were around me. But yet I see also how the more and more, in particular, ever since 2020 goes on, the more and more people are divided. And so those of us who are targeted are becoming even more divided within our circumstances, giving them more leeway to have their way with you. But you have to stand on you got to stand on your conviction. That way it's still going to be limited. You cannot bow down to it, even in your thoughts, you know, because even in my weak moments, I see how they try to play on that in hopes to be able to drag me further and further down. But I recognize, you know, it's a time, there's a time and a place to deal with your shit. And I'm not going to act like I'm not bothered by a certain thing at any given point, you know. But, you know, I've been working on a product line, and I formulated one product already. And so I've been working on my online presence and so on and so forth. But I just want to just give you an example of what I'm referring to about this the harassment that takes place with individuals that are targeted in particular. And so I go on a Twitter, and you know, to start to work on my online presence for business purposes, not because I'm, you know, expressing myself and this and that. You know, this is for business purposes. And I do my first tweet, and then when I go back into my feed, the first thing that I see, these are the games that they like to play with you as our targeted individual. The first thing that I see is someone showing up in my feed by the name of Who Cares. And then it's now that's their, I guess their handler name on Twitter. That's their handle. And there's a video of where Aaliyah is speaking on the video. You know, I don't know. You can draw the correlation. I don't know. But anyway, so But when you don't have people around you to say, hey, look at this, then it doesn't validate what you're experiencing. Therefore, having people become more aware of something to start to be able to speak against and act against the mistreatment, the ill ways, or the violation from those who are opportunistic, and they're always looking for something to take advantage of a person. It doesn't matter what it is. Their whole system is predicated upon that. And so when the mind games are being played, through indoctrination in various ways, and with technology, it just opens up so many different ways that they can mind fuck you. It's just so many different ways that they can mind fuck you. You know what I'm saying? Like, especially with the whole brain interfacing, and it's really a scary thing when it's all said and done, because it's being done to me. People say, yeah, that's scary, but the scary thing is when it's done to the masses. That's when we really in trouble. I was recently listening to Joe Rogan, and they were talking about Jordan Peterson. Now, it's not too many people I agree with fully anyway. Some things I like about, I like that he says, and then some things I'm not in agreement with. I did purchase a book of his or whatever, but evidently he's under some type of scrutiny right now from the Canadian government, because that he retweeted a tweet from someone who's in opposition of how the Canadian government conducts their business. So he did a retweet, and so now he's under fire, and they're actually threatening to take his I guess he's a psychologist. I think psychiatrist, one of them. They're threatening to take his license until he does a what is the word they use? It's funny. It's like a reprogramming type of word. They want him to take some type of reprogramming or retraining educational thing. Something like that, some type of class they want him to take, and the words they use to describe the type of class it is like a retraining, like he needs to come in like he's malfunctioned, and he has to come back to be like tweaked or calibrated or something of some sort. I thought about that. I said, wow, that's very interesting that they would use these terms to describe something for him, like he has to be reprogrammed. And it kind of makes sense what they're saying, because this is a man that went to their schools where he was programmed into a way of thinking. They delivered an education to him in order to gain a certain outcome, but he went rogue. He malfunctioned. He needs an upgrade because something is either outdated or something, he's developed some type of virus that's caused him to think outside of the sphere of what the indoctrination or the narrative that's been given to him. Now, that's some deep shit, because then, they're really taking ownership of your education and the fact that you're participating in their educational system. They're taking full ownership of it, and therefore full ownership of you. That's some deep shit. That's some real deep shit right there. Because this is what these motherfuckers be on. Because you have participated in their schooling. Therefore, if you deviate off of that, then you have to come back and be reprogrammed. Now, what makes an expert an expert? And this is something that came up in this conversation that I was listening to on this Joe Rogan show. And the guy made a valid point when he talked about how it is only books that people read and are taught out of that makes them an expert these days. It's not their experience. The changing of the meaning of things, the etymology of what something initially was and what it'll be turned into or has been turned into, is two different things. So to actually be an expert on something, you would have to understand the inner workings of it. I have firsthand experience with the inner workings of it. Just it can't just be a book thing. It can't just be a book thing. But in this society, you can literally be deemed an expert on something just based on receiving a degree. You don't even have to necessarily go out and do the work to start calling yourself an expert in something. And so then, what if someone never has received the schooling, the programming, but yet and still they just know how to fix a car, but they can't call themselves an expert on it? Or just like someone who may know how to heal the body, but they've never been to school, so they can't call themselves an expert on it. I think about how when I was even in massage school and, we learned various aspects of that particular field, and how doctors, because if they're not taught it, they feel like it doesn't have any validation, being that, I was in a nation for a certain amount of time, and the importance that had always been placed on fasting. You think about Dick Gregory, you think about Dr. Sebi and all the fasting. And I remember being in the nation and hearing so many negative things being said about fasting. Like it was just some type of abomination. And then fast forward to today where that's the norm. And so like when you think about censorship, and this is the crazy thing and strange thing about censorship, how they want to censor someone from having a different viewpoint. Because see, when you censor someone from something, that means you're not giving anyone else, you're not giving people a chance to come up to form their own conclusion, to do the necessary footwork in order to form their own conclusion. You only want them to think this way, even if it's wrong. And so, they were talking about this the whole concept of this Bill Gates guy, talking about how it's going to be another pandemic, and it's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be that way, so on and so forth. And they're already trying to play things in place to stop people from speaking out against anything they don't agree with, when we know that even since this whole 2020 thing, you have people who have been fired, who have been mislabeled, who have been mistreated due to the fact that they didn't agree with these various things in regards to this whole 2020 situation. And then somewhere down the line, the conspiracy theory turned into a conspiracy fact. And they got the nerves to say they're trying to put certain censorship in place in order to stop people from speaking against something that they don't agree with. So this is not about this is not about being in a free society. This is strictly about dictatorship through various corporations. Because all these robber barons that play a role in this current illusion that we're living in, they created the circumstances in order to promote what they put their money behind, or what their family put their monies behind. So they'll create a need for something that's not even there. I.e., they will terminate thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people to create the illusion that something is needed that they just so happen to have. This is who we're dealing with here. This is why Bill Gates is so, I mean, come on now, Bill, stop it. And the people, shame on you for not recognizing that someone, now he's talking about polio. It's supposed to be, you know, some type of outbreak of polio. And just so happens they have the remedy for it. They have the vaccination for it. They have the vaccination, him and his ex-wife. They supposedly have the vaccination to cure polio altogether. But in order for them to profit off of it, they had to present a situation where polio is back on, popping again. What is wrong with these motherfuckers? To even go so far. I mean, it's one thing to discredit and downplay marijuana. Also, you can push oil. But it's a whole nother motherfucking thing for you to make people sick purposely. Kill people purposely. So you can come in. What the fuck is wrong with you, nigga? I don't understand why this motherfucker is still walking around. Somebody help me understand this shit. This nigga, shouldn't he be at least in jail? Shouldn't they have this nigga somewhere in solitude, some motherfucking way away from the general public or population in jail? He shouldn't be allowed to talk to him. You're talking about a motherfucker that needs to be separated and isolated. This motherfucker is a detriment to the planet. Just straight up. And so the agenda, the blueprint, the business plan that continually is being pushed, that promotes what it promotes, it is hell bent in sticking to its plan. No matter what. This is just, when this time comes, we got to do this. Because that's in a business plan. At this time, we got to do this. And so, how are we going to manifest this right here? Okay. So we just go, okay. We know they've been working on in the lab on this right here. So we just gonna make sure that somehow it seeps out of that lab by this time in order for it to be able to reach a certain amount of people by this date. That's what's going on here. Because they looking at the numbers and they saying, oh, we can stand to lose a couple of billion. We got a lot to work with here. I mean, and here we are, the ones who are truly the scapegoat here, truly the sacrifices, because no one cares. No one cares. Who cares? Who cares what happens to a black woman? Who cares what happens to a black man? Who cares what happens to black children? Because we have been taught not to care ourselves. And you can't expect someone else to care about you when you don't care about yourself, regardless of how you got there. It don't make sense. And so if we don't start caring about ourselves and one another, we'll continually pay the price of hate. This is about business. There is no better business to be into other than the business of self right now. Walking around here acting like because you've been able to gain access to that which you were deprived of, therefore making you carry a sense of grandeur that's just so unnecessary, further causing a divide with those who look like you, because they're not feeling like they can relate to you because you're so unapproachable. causing more and more of, I mean, it's just basically causing more and more inflation within our own community. We have our own different type of inflation taking place here. That attitude plays a role in the interest we pay on a loan. Bad attitudes in our community play all the role in why our pockets are so depleted. Us walking around here with that divisive spirit, always hating on each other, always comparing yourself to each other, but you ain't comparing yourself to these white folks, though, quote unquote white folks. You always hating on each other. That the price we gotta pay for hate. It's just really, really, it's gonna put us in a ongoing cycle of being in a disadvantage. Our only way to advantage is unity. That's our only way. We can't, one of us individually accomplishing certain successes in life is not going to bring us out of the black on black crime and the black on black murder and the black man and the black woman being at each other's throats. That our individual success is not going to do it, because we're not being seen collectively. They see us collectively. They don't give a fuck how much money you got. That is our only power, is in collection. And every time we feed into this divisive spirit, this opposing spirit against one another, we deplete our own pockets. We literally deplete our own. The price that we have to pay for hate is through the roof. And no one's benefiting in our community. They're benefiting from the hate. They benefit from the hate from the guns, the funeral homes, the funerals, the caskets, the flowers. Because even when you got a black funeral home in your community, they still not making as much money as the motherfuckers that made the caskets. And everybody that they outsourcing shit and getting from. I mean, think about it. I mean, every time you hate on your sister, black woman, black man, every time you hate on your brother, black woman, black man, you're causing further inflation within our community. More and more and more, we're just losing money. So when we go and buy something, and if someone that we're dealing with has any control over the price, as soon as they see us coming, they go give us the highest price. They go give us the highest price. Why? Because they know who we are. They know how we operate. They know we ain't gonna come together to come up against them. They know we ain't gonna come together to change no policies. They know that we ain't gonna come together to make no real move, because we trying to pass our power on to someone else so they can do the work. We want to take the easy road. But even taking that road has not even benefited us. We still left with crumbs. We still left with someone else being energized and being placed with power off of our energy, i.e. voting, in particular for the Democratic Party. You still waiting to take your problems to someone else, to have them. When a person is not vested, that's just like a lawyer versus a damn public defender. You gonna get a whole different type of fucking argument for your case if you paying for it. If you more vested into it and they more vested into it. That's just how it is. And so we can't we this minority, this minor mindset, these tantrums we always throwing. I don't like you. You don't want to be around. You know what I'm saying? I experience that all day long within amongst my people. The elementary immaturity that I see in people who look the part. They look like they grown. They going to work. You know what I'm saying? They got their own homes. They got their own vehicles. It look like they doing something, but they still have such a childlike mentality. They still living in the past. They still can't get over what happened. They still mad at such and such. They still can't forgive. They still can't do the math on why they even going through that shit in the first place or who responsible for it and the game that's been played in order to put them in that position to fuck their head up so they don't get no damn where. It's just, this shit is just the price that we pay for hate. And how we just can't do the math on it to just act right. Do you know that you acting right towards yourself and others is far greater for your community than you going to get a college degree? Do you know you having some self-love for how the Creator made you is far more beneficial to you financially than you going to work in one of their corporations? You've been lied to. You've been mind fucked. Like Michael Mack said, you've been motherfucking led astray. I think about how I wasn't feeling good yesterday. And I was in a position where I really didn't have nowhere where I could go, where I could be comfortable enough to be able to recover from some stress that I experienced. And I live in a city full of hundreds of people that I know. Many of them I'm related to. But the division amongst our people. And so then, if that is going on, what is going on in terms of our financial position in this city? I can't even imagine how much motherfucking money we giving away to everybody else for them to gain riches. I mean, because just what I experienced alone yesterday speaks volumes on our position financially. But people can't do the math on it. What they got to do is stupidity. You know how many motherfucking years of educating the motherfucker on the correlation of what's taking place here? You know how many years it'll take for a motherfucker to be able to do the math on that? You can sit and tell a motherfucker 2 + 2 = 4. 2 + 2 you can just over and over and over again. It'll take them years to be able to understand what that means. And that's what's going on in this community, in this society. The critical thinking skill has been depleted and zapped out of motherfuckers. They can't do the math on shit. They can't take something that they already know and utilize it in a different area. Because they don't see the correlation. They can't draw the correlation. But the price that we're paying for hate, the price that we're paying for self-hate, is what ultimately keeps us in a position of the disadvantage. Ultimately. And so you got your own people saying that you're disadvantaged. They separate themselves from you, not recognizing that it is that attitude is the reason why they could only get $17,000 business loan with an 800 credit score. Our lack of wisdom and discernment is the reason why we suffer. I just wanted to speak on that, guys. And I hope this enlightens people. Just, you can go and be around your people in various settings, and they be having all these unnecessary airs of grandeur, and they don't even be degreed. They haven't even put in any work anywhere. But because they're in a sea of people who always feels the need to feel superior, and they have to do that on the backs of others, everyone has these shields up. And everybody is on some dog eat dog work, mindset. You got people in high places, my own people in high places, who are striving to come up against me because of my energy and what they feel the reflection of my energy does to their energy. You understand what I'm saying? Comprehend what I'm saying. Like me sleeping in a vehicle, my existence depletes their power and their energy. This is what their concept of what's taking place. It's a perception. It's a sick perception. But this is how it's through the sick perceptions that they've been able to gain their privilege and their advantage. Because for my people that may play a role in with some of these things I'm experiencing, the more and more that you come up against me, the more and more you come up against yourself. You wonder why you can't get a record deal? You wonder why you can't get too many people to buy your new shit? You wonder why you can't get the publicity to get your shit out there? The math. You all off on your math is all off. The numbers. You paying attention to the wrong numbers. You paying attention to somebody else's numbers that really don't even affect you. You might get a drop in a bucket, but all the work you put in and all the hate you motherfucking give, you would think you would be able to get more out of it, but you're not, because you're going about it the wrong way. But anyway, so I just wanted to speak on that, guys. Be well. Again, I just want to thank everyone, and especially you, Brother Lance. You've definitely been, you have been a support to me. You have been more of a support for me than the men in my life, the men around me. Like you have served as some form of protection that I can't even get physically from the men around me. So when they talk about the black woman being the least protected being on the planet, I thank you for stepping in and doing what you can, doing your part, brother. I really appreciate it, and I hope that, you reach your deserved goals in this experience. And you definitely are paying attention to the proper numbers, brother. You are an example for many of us, in particular for brothers out here. And I thank you, brother. And, I just want to go ahead and I'm going to go end on that note. Until next time, guys, enjoy and be well.